Let's say that someone is looking for a place that feels like home. They don't feel like the place they live, they belong. I believe that there are places that are more supportive for you to be there, but it's not like you are going to move there and all your problems will disappear.
Could you also plan your travels around it then? Like, oh, if I know that I have to go to this place, then, then things are going to work out. Why is not everyone doing that? Hi, and welcome to Beyonder, the podcast. I'm your host, V, and in Beyonder, the podcast, we talk about going beyond borders. Not just country borders, but also inner limitations. And with my guests, I talk about inner and outer journeys. And today's guest is very special. We're going to talk about a topic that is so interesting. And I think the first time when I heard about it, I had no idea what it was about. And maybe you have the same when you listen to this episode today. So what we're going to talk about is astrocartography and how it can influence where you're going to travel to, or if you are thinking about moving abroad. And maybe now you're like, okay, how does this even work? So I invited Sonia. She's a transformational travel coach, and she is specialized in this. And she actually helps her clients while they are figuring out a place to travel to or to move to with this beautiful tool of astrocartography. And I met Sonia a couple of years ago. We were both in the same certification program to become a travel coach. And I also was a guest on her podcast a few years ago. So it's really like a full circle moment to have her here on the show today. So without further ado, welcome, Sonia, to the show.
Hi, Lily. I'm so happy.
Hi.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm delighted to be
Yeah,
here.
my pleasure. It's really nice to have you here on the show today. And before we dive into this magical topic, a question that I always like to ask my guests when we start the show is, because of course, as I said, Beyonder is about going beyond the ordinary and living your life on your own terms. So what I want to ask you is, how do you live your life beyond the ordinary?
It's a great question. And yeah, you make me think how I live my life beyond the ordinary. So I always like to keep myself out of my comfort zone. So I think this is the way I keep myself out of the routine. So I believe the ordinary is the routine, is when you already know what's coming, you can predict your day. Every day is a repetition of the day before, and it eventually becomes, a safe place, a familiar place, but also a place where nothing new can come, and eventually boring. And I'm aware and conscious to not let this happen, because it's very tempting, to go back to where the cozy place, where everything is known, but keep myself on my toes. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm an expat myself, and I live outside my country. When I go back to Spain, when I am originally from, people ask me, what do you like about Ireland? Why are you there? And the answer, when I was thinking, is like, it keeps me on my toes. The different language, different culture is something different. Yeah, that's how I do it.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I can relate to that with living in a different country and how that sort of, what you said, keeps you on your toes and keeps you out of your comfort zone. And also with what you said about certain habits or that certain routines can keep you stuck in that ordinary life, right? And to find ways to step out of that. And of course, you also travel a lot and have traveled a lot, right? Do you feel like in a way that also has helped you to feel like, oh, my life is not ordinary, so to say?
Yes, that's it. So changing environment, being every time in a different place, or sometimes you repeat the place as well and the destination, because for work you cannot choose always where are you going to travel to, but it's different people, it's different time of the year perhaps, so every time is different because you are also different and you grow. So yes, traveling is definitely a way to keep yourself out of the routine of the familiarity and the ordinary.
Yeah, beautiful. And so let's just, dive into this topic, because I feel like especially for people who have never heard of astrocartography. They're like, sitting on the edge of their chair and be like, what is this? It's a difficult word. What does this even mean? So maybe we just start there, like really, for someone who has never heard of this, what is it? Yeah, let's just start from there.
The definition. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So it's true. Some people are like, how do you even pronounce this? So it's very, in simple terms, astrocartography is the astrology of places. That's the simplest way you can describe is the astrology applied to geography. Okay, so astrology and geography together. So it's interesting because I didn't know about this concept when I started my business, my career as a travel coach, and when I discovered it and I saw how powerful was it in my own case, and I was like, oh my God, my clients need that, And because the person I learned it from was, had a long waiting list, I could not delegate that part to him because it was like 6 months, 1 year waiting list. So that was too much. I eventually decided to learn it myself because it was so powerful what I discovered that I knew my clients needed that. So they tell you astrocartography is a tool, a methodology that can tell you where in the world the places, the energy of the place is more supportive or less supportive for you based on your goals. Since I specialize in transformational travel, as you mentioned earlier, so people who work with me are looking to move geographically, either to travel or relocate, because they want to change in their life. And this change can be just an improvement, can be something, as I said, keep themselves out of the ordinary, something different, right? So, but of course, the goals can be also different. So based on the intentions of this relocation or this trip, where in the world you can narrow down, because the world is so big that you can be trial and error for the rest of your life and you will not even finish the destinations. So it helps you narrow down where is actually a good place for you to check out.
Yeah, and does it also show you which places you should avoid, or is it really about, okay, these places are the most beneficial for me, and in that sense you should sort of avoid other places?
Yes, so it tells you lines that are more supportive or less supportive, but this does not mean, look, this is also misconception that, and we need to set expectations as well. So it's not like you are going to move to this place. Let's say that someone is looking for a place that feels like home, which is, an important one that people, most of my clients, when they come to me is because they don't feel like the place they live, they belong. They don't feel they belong there. It can be the place they were born, but still feels like something is off and they don't belong there. So they are looking for a place that feels like home. And this is what we do in the session, right? So where are potential places? There is not only one place, there are potential places. Also, we can narrow down as much as you want. So we can see everywhere in the world, or we can see just in a specific country. And there are places where the energy is, stronger or less stronger, but there are places, more than one. But I believe that there are places that are more supportive for you to be there. But it's not like you are going to move there and all your problems will disappear. You're going to still be the same person. But it's like the place is supportive in the same sense that, for example, if you are cycling and the wind is against you, it's going to be more difficult for you. You need to you need to push harder. And if it's with you, or you are sailing, right, if the wind is in your favor, it's going to be easier. But you still need to do the work. You still need to do what you have to do. It's not that, everything will change all of the sudden, but it's going to be easier. You're going to feel that you struggle less to actually achieve your goals. So yes, there are places that help you with that, and there are places that make you more difficult to do that. Places you should avoid. We can also look at them. Usually when I look at places where different lines cross that are not supportive, then I would say try to avoid that place if you can. But I believe there is not right or wrong places depending on the intention and what you look for.
Yeah. Thank you for explaining that. I think that's really a clear explanation for someone who is just starting with this. And I think for me, I loved what you said about that some places just feel more like home, or that you feel like you have the wind in your sails. Like I can really relate to that now being back in Sydney. And actually it's funny because I had an astrocartography reading as a surprise just a few days before I moved to Sydney. I was in Lisbon with some friends and we were just having drinks in a bar. And there was this event going on and you could just get all types of different readings. And then they gifted me one, but I didn't even know what I was going to get. So it could be like a tarot reading or a palm reading or whatever it was. So when I sat down with that lady, she gave me an astrocartography reading. And I already decided that I was going to move. So that was decided, right? But she just confirmed so many things that gave me extra validation that Sydney was a good choice. So that was a nice feeling in that sense for me that I was like, oh, I really feel this strong pull to move back there. And it felt like, oh, this is written in the stars. That's what it felt like for me at that moment. So sometimes it's also, I think, at least for me in my experience, that it was this confirmation of something that I was already experiencing. And now that I'm back here, I do feel like so much more expansion than when I was living in the Netherlands. And I've been looking a little bit at my map as well with those lines. And of course, I'm not an expert like you, but I was just looking a little bit and I was like, oh, okay, I guess this makes sense why I felt like things were maybe a bit more difficult when I was still there and things feel like they're flowing more when I'm here. So I think it's just fascinating that we can get this information from looking at this map. And for someone who has never seen it, it's literally the map of the world with lots of different lines everywhere and colors. And if you have no idea where to look, then it looks like it can be very confusing. So yeah, when you do like a reading with someone, where do you even start? When someone comes to you and, for example, what you said feels like, oh, I'm looking for a place where I can feel more at home. Where would you even start?
Yeah. And it's good that you had your own session as well, and you can test, how it feels, because it's difficult to explain rationally until you really have a reading. And it's like, oh my God, it's not unusual that people, when I work with people, they get emotional. So you feel like, some tears going down because they feel so understood and seen when we look at this, that is like, it's a special. So where do I start? Good question. So you always start with the birth chart. So you cannot read the map as you describe it, is a world, the map of the world with different lines. There are 4 lines that in this map that represent the 4 angles of a birth chart. You cannot read the map without connecting it with the birth chart. So this is something important I want to say, because the astrocartography reading is all about interpretation. And it's also, if you are looking to have a reading, or some people want to do it themselves or using AI or things like that. So it's important that you work with somebody who is a professional, who knows what they are doing, because it's not just, okay, this line means that, or, Venus means love, and this, if I want to grow, I go to Jupiter. It's not as easier like that, because nobody has a pure Venus or a pure Jupiter. So you need to always read it, considering your chart, your birth chart. And for everybody, it's going to be different. Okay, so yes, every archetype, every planet archetype has a meaning, and this is universal. But then what this means for you and your relationship personally with that planet is unique. So that's what we need to look at when we do a reading, how this line, based on your chart, what it means, what may be the struggles or the things that you need to consider before moving there.
Yeah, so it's not as easy as you said, oh, this is my Venus line, so that's where I'm going to fall in love or whatever, right? Whatever it might be.
Yes, because also every planet archetype has so many different representations, and they mean different things. Also, another thing that you can look at is your transit. Because so I always say the astrocartography map does not change, like your birth chart. Don't change. All your life you will have the same. This is not going to change. However, the transits change. So where these planets are transiting in your chart, this is different depending on the time of your life, the month, the year, where you are. So also another thing that I do with my clients is I check when they reach out to me, where are they going, what transit they are going at that time, because this also tells me information about what it might be going on at that specific time of their life. So yes, if Venus is crossing France or Paris for you, it's always going to be there. But what it means is different depending on your birth chart and the transit, the moment of the time you are going through at that time, particular time.
Yeah, so in a way, could you also plan your travels around it then? That you say like, oh, I want to travel somewhere. What could be the best time, for example, to go to a certain place?
Exactly. If you're going to map out destinations, if you are, digital nomad doing your sabbaticals, career breaks, I also had travel professionals planning retreats where it's going to be more suitable, what time of the year and what destination. So we can map out all, you can plan it in the future. So it's not like you can see, because this is predictable, the transits, how the planets move certain orbits and take certain amount of time to do a full circle. So you can plan in the future as well.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And for someone who's listening now and maybe feels a bit skeptical, right? If it's very new, it can be like, okay, but that sounds too easy in a way. Of course, not what you're doing is easy, but like, oh, if I know that I have to go to this place, then then things are going to work out. Why is not everyone doing that? I can imagine that you might be like, what would you say to that?
Yes, no, good point. Healthy skepticism is always good. When I first saw this, I never, had the opportunity to learn about astrology in general. To me, astrology meant the horoscope in the newspaper. So it was just entertainment.
Yeah.
You read it just to have a good day and have fun, and that's it. But
Yeah.
when you see and you go to a professional and you already understand what's behind, the way I see it, okay? So I'm going to explain it for those who are more rational or, less in the world of astrology. So the way I also kind of give myself the rational understanding of how this can be possible. So it's basically the universe works in fractals, which are patterns within patterns. So if we look around in nature, we can see, the tree branches, but this is repeats, the leaves, the rivers, mountain ranges, or even inside of our bodies, the lungs or the vessels, the blood vessels, have these shapes. I give the example, and it's going to be funny how I compare astrology with this, but I give the example of a broccoli. So you look up, because it's the most simple way we can see these fractals. So you see a broccoli and every piece has the shape of the whole broccoli, right? So it's like every piece contains the whole. So there is this belief, and actually there is a colleague of Einstein, Nobel Prize, that they are studying with this belief that the universe is a hologram, like a hologram. Works like a hologram, which means every piece contains the whole. If you know how holograms work, it's like every single piece is not just a piece of the whole picture, it's the whole picture is in every piece. So in the moment you arrive to this world, it's like you took a picture. The patterns of the planets were in a certain pattern. All the planets and celestial bodies were forming like a pattern in the universe. So it's like you took that pattern and this is within you. So that's how astrology works, right? So you are going to move geographically, you have the same patterns, you are not going to change. This is the way you see the world. And the awareness and like the glasses that you have are from this pattern. Is your perspective. So when you move geographically, this changes because it's like the angles of your chart change. You're still the same person, but just some parts of your personality, some parts of your soul are highlighted, are like the volume is up. Okay, so you can be a person who is more connected with their confident side, or a person who is the opposite, more shy. You're still you, but it's like this place brings up some part of your personality. Again, it's not going to save your life. You still need to do your work, but it's going to be easier if you can tap or you can channel that energy that's going to have the skills or, the part of your personality more connected or more tuned in that you need for that challenge or that outcome or intention you have when you travel.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And while you were sharing that, I was also just thinking about my own experiences and also what I just shared before. I actually have experienced that, how whether now that I've moved countries, but also when I'm traveling, how much a different place brings out different parts of you. And as you said, wherever you go, you take yourself. That's what I always say in my coaching as well. It's not that moving somewhere new or traveling somewhere else is just going to solve all your problems, right? You're still moving. But I loved how you shared that and explained it, that it's really the different parts of your personality can come out in different places. It's so valuable when you have a tool like this to explore that even more and to use that in your advantage. And as you said as well, you have to do the work, right? But if you have this extra information, why not use it? I think it's very fascinating. And I was like you as well. I think a couple of years ago, I was just interested in horoscopes and I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I was like, oh yeah, full moon, this and that. I started to learn more about astrology. And yeah, I feel like this is another layer that you can add. And there's so much to discover with tools like this. And yeah, I think it's very interesting.
And it's very difficult to rationalize, I'm just trying to explain my best capacity how this works internally. But I believe many people who are listening, they experience it. So maybe you cannot understand the reason, but you experience it, that you arrive to a place for the first time and you've never been there before, but you feel like home. You feel like I've been here before. It's like everything is like, I love this place. And maybe you travel with other people and they tell you, what do you love about this place? I just didn't like it. Or the other way around. You arrive to a place and again, nothing necessarily happened, but it's like something feels off. It's like, I don't know, there is a bad vibe about it. And other people can be the best place ever for them. So it's very personal. This experience is very individually. So chances are when you are experiencing this, that some lines that are supportive or less supportive are around that area.
Yeah. And do you have any stories of clients who you did a reading for that afterwards, had this big shift, or maybe in your own life that you felt like, oh, I took some steps based on what I discovered through astrocartography, and then I had this really amazing outcome that I actually, didn't expect, right? Because in a way you could expect it somehow, but that things really worked out in a way that you're like, oh wow, this actually does really make sense because I could read this in my chart beforehand.
Yes. So I can tell you also, this is a good example to show, because when we look at readings and we look at the astrocartography, this conversation with the person is something that, again, is two sides. It's not just me reading it, because it's an interpretation. So I need the other person in front of me and asking questions and see, the meaning of the lines and the charts. It's not like 1 + 1 is 2. So we need to interpret what that means. That's why I say the importance of having a good guide at the other side. Examples of places. So, okay, two things. So you can see different options. There are like two kind of lines, as I mentioned, the supportive and the non so much supportive. This is to simplify, okay? There is many more, but to simplify. The flowing lines, where everything is easy, it's flowing, it's like in the way that most people say yes to that. But also there are the other lines that I call them non-supportive, but this is not an accurate word, because are like dynamic lines. Dynamic lines and challenging lines, but the challenge is not always bad. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example of a client who went to a place in the world that the line, because my thoughts were like, because I have lots of things I want to share with you. But when I have a client, and usually they tell me, I want a flowing place. But depending on where you are in your life and what you need, maybe it's not the best for you. This is what I want to say. Because these challenging lines of dynamic lines can be exactly what you need to make that decision to move, to change, the thing that maybe you didn't have I'm going to say courage maybe to change. It's going to give you like, okay, enough. Okay, so it's like a turning point. I'm going to go there. So people who went to these challenging lines or dynamic lines and took decisions like, I'm not going to go back to my job. I'm going to start my business, and this is what they needed to actually say enough. And then, move forward and have this new chapter of their life. This is kind of a radical transformation. There are small kind of transformations and awareness or insights that you can have, and just implement a simple new habit can be enough. But radical changes like that happen in these challenging or dynamic lines, because it's like, okay, it's going to be a turning point. It's like, can be, changing relationships or places where to live, like important decisions. It's like a before and after. So this can happen in a place that will help you to make this decision. It can be that people come and tell me where I can have this kind of experience, or they can come to me and tell me, I'm going to go to this place. This is already decided. I cannot choose. How can I make the most of my time or my experience there? So this is the other example I want to give you. Someone who goes to a place and looking at that place, because it's like the place chose you, can be like job or can be holiday that you do with your family, so you cannot decide. But looking at the place, It's like, okay, do you know that this place is good for networking? It's good for actually connections for your business. Oh, really? Yes. So knowing that, this woman went to that place that was like, a holiday kind of place for her. But when she came back, it was like, oh my God, this was exactly what you told me. It was kind of a awakening there for me. And I had all these connections that I'm, working with my business after that because she was aware. So if you don't know that the opportunity is there, yes, it may happen, still may happen by chance. I'm not saying that things can happen by chance, but if you prepare, are more likely when you recognize or when you meet someone to actually say, hey, this is an opportunity here to collaborate or to, so that the two ways that you can do is like where I go, I need to really make a decision, and not always it's going to be a flow place the best for you. It can be a challenging place the best for you. And the other thing is like, I am already going there. What can I do to, make the most of that time there?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And thank you for sharing those different examples. And also actually what you said about that sometimes a challenging place can be good for you. It just reminded me of my own situation when I found out in my chart as well during that reading that the Netherlands was actually a challenging place for me. And I was like, well, that's the place where I spent the last 5 years going through quite some challenges. I didn't know that at the time, right? But then sort of when I had that reading, I was like, oh, that makes sense. But it was not like, of course, it was challenging, but it also, for example, made me start my business and go through a lot of growth and do a lot of inner work and those type of things. So when you shared like, okay, challenging places can also be good for you, that actually reminded me of that, because I was like, yeah, that's exactly what happened for me as well. Like I had to go through that challenging phase to take certain steps in my life so that now I'm actually in a place that feels much more expansive, like expansion. And now also what you said, like I can feel, for example, more confidence. And I'm like, okay, is that just that part of me that comes out now? Or is that actually because this place, amplifies those parts of your personality? So I think that's very fascinating.
Yes, 100%. So it's definitely that, right? So people tend to tell me, no, flowing, but actually also depending again, let's go back to your birth chart. If you're a person who is a high achiever, if you're you will know, so in your chart will be lots of red lines. Usually the challenging, depending on the software you use, but the challenging lines are in red and the flowing lines are blue. But people who have a lot of red lines in their birth chart, they're usually high achievers. So if I send them to a flowing line, they will be bored. They're like, what? They want this challenge, So that's why I say you cannot just look at the map and say, this is a good place. You need to know what kind of person you are working with. It's very individual, and for everybody it's going to be different.
Yeah. So you're saying like you have to use them together. You cannot just look at them. Yeah. Because otherwise you might have a line and you think it's positive or like good for you, but it actually, if you don't know how it relates to your birth chart, it might not make sense at all.
Exactly. So it can be just flat. It's like nothing about this place, and they need this little of spice there because of who they are, so you can see that in their chart. So I always start the sessions with a reading of the birth chart. So the sessions are usually 90 minutes and we spend half an hour of that at the birth chart. And then we move the other hour to the map. So it's important to do both.
Yeah, and this is something that you feel someone can do themselves. I know in the beginning you said you can even check it with AI, but is that even, reliable? I'm just thinking there's so many different things, right? Is that something that can even be replaced in that sense? Because you have to, what you said, it's like based on interpretation and mixing this birth chart with the world map and all of those nuances.
I just mention it because I know many people out there are doing it, right? So, or they just look at, so a friend who is a little bit as a hobby, they're doing that. So I would say how important is for you to get this. If it's just a game and you do it for fun and, go and do it. But if it's something important, if you're going to make life decisions based on that, I would say go to a professional. It is something that I said, this is an interpretation. So I don't know if one day in the future AI will be able to substitute an astrologer. There is so much interpretation. It's like, okay, is AI gonna substitute a therapist or a psychologist? Or I don't know. Maybe we don't know, right? But it needs this part of human interpretation and connection, and there are so many pieces involved that at the moment we are not there. That's for sure. So if you're going to have a good haircut, you don't do it yourself. You go to somebody who does it professionally. But, depending on how important it is for you. If it was me, I would just not leave, because again, this is once in a lifetime most of the times. So it's not just that you're going to do this every month. When we do a reading, we look at different places, and then there is a recording, and you can watch this recording 10 years from now, and it's going to be still relevant, because the birth chart does not change, the destinations don't change. Because I believe when you feel also attracted, and you mentioned that you feel pulled to move to Sydney, to go back to Australia, if you feel this pull, I usually trust it. And we look at the map, it's like, okay, why you feel this pull? And then we understand what is actually your soul asking you to experience. Because it wants you, this part of yourself is asking you to move there, because knows that once you're going to be there, you're going to have that experience that you need for your growth, for the time of the life that you need. You need that experience to actually go in this path of personal growth, spiritual growth, etc. Yes, follow the instinct, but also having this conversation with a professional that helps you to understand what to expect there, why you're feeling pulled to that place, and how to prepare yourself better as well. Because sometimes we are going to move to a place that's good for us or is supportive for us, but we need to overcome some challenges that are on our birth chart. And that's part of the purpose, of that journey. To move there, to have these rewards, but to arrive there, you need to overcome some of the challenges that I can see, in different parts. So to be aware and know, I think it's important for the person to know this is not anything wrong about me. There is nothing wrong about me. Because in my case, I also felt this way. And that's how I discovered astrocartography as well, for my personal situation. We moved to another part of the country, and I start feeling very triggered and stuck. And I said, what's going on? I thought it was me. I would never in my imagination think was the place. I was not in my, paradigm of possibilities. It was like, and I saw that line crossing there. I was like, what the hell? And I understood. And then we look at other places, where I was born, the places I traveled, when I had these, life-changing moments and the lines crossing there. Because if you see two lines cross or more than one line cross, the energy is even stronger and more intense. So you can see that in the map as like, you cannot fake that. You cannot, make it up. So it's the lines, you can see it, so, and match with the experience. So it's very personal, it's very subjective, but it can really help you to understand what's going on with you and to help to find places that will support in your goals.
That's really, really interesting. And I'm just thinking also, in your case, so you travel a lot. Do you now plan your travels also based on what you see in your map? Or are you like, no, I'm not going to do that with every trip. Sometimes I just feel like going somewhere. Or are you really like, oh, I want to know what's going to happen? Of course, you don't know exactly, but in a way, what's out there for me when I book a trip somewhere.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, we cannot predict a future and know what's going to happen. That's nothing about that.
No.
So it's about the dynamic and the energy, the vibe that's going to be there. So, of course, if I can choose, I will say, let's go to this place. But looking at the reality of my life and my work, I'm not choosing so many destinations. So it's like, I have to be there for work. We are going there, and it can be family trip, but it's already decided the destinations. I suppose also because I work in travel, I'm not planning so much because it feels like work when it's for me.
Yeah.
So if I can choose, yes, I will choose places that are, based on what I want to experience at that time. But most of the times it's the other way. So what I do is, okay, I check what's always before going to the place. I check. It's like, what's there for me? Just out of curiosity. There is nothing I can change. It's already booked the trip, but out of curiosity, so I can see and notice. And that's also something very, I think it's worth mentioning as well, that all of these softwares or free softwares that there are online, or I don't know, using AI or other ways, most people see just the main lines. So there are clients that come to me that they've done their research first, right? And they did, I know I have this line going in, New York. And it's like, you have this line in this place. I said, no, we don't have any line. I don't have any line of this place. Oh, yes, you do. So there are many more lines than just the stronger or main lines. There are many more aspects that cross some places that we can look, but the thing is that they are less louder. Okay, so they are more subtle. And when you go narrow down and you go deep, and yes, you zoom in and you go deeper, you can see these subtle lines that not everyone will feel them when you travel to a place. But if you are tuning and you know they exist, and especially in moments of quietness. I remember I was a few months ago, I went to El Salvador and I checked the place also for work. And it was one of these subtle, beautiful lines, with some Venus flavor there of creativity. And I was like, oh, wow, that's amazing. I love that feeling. But when I went there, it felt like I could not feel it. I was like, oh, what is it? Because it was like a noisy place in the capital. Was noisy, was traffic, lots of going on. Also, I was busy working. But then when I woke up early the next day in the morning, I woke up early to do meditation and to have my time for myself. I felt, all right, here it is. Yeah. So you have this time, the city is quiet, you are in this quiet moment, and you can feel the connection with that energy. So sometimes it's not so evident, it's not so loud, it's not, you see nothing in the map, but when you go deeper, you feel these lines that are there. So if you know they exist, you can also create these moments of connection, of peace, of silence, to connect with that line, because it's something that you also have to experience. You are there to experience that. So unless you know exist, you will maybe miss it.
Yeah, so in a way, it's also helping you to maybe have more of those deeper experiences, because what you said, you were in a way looking for it and you were like, oh, I don't feel it, until you really tuned in, and then you were like, oh, okay, this is the feeling I was looking for. And maybe you wouldn't have thought about that or wouldn't have recognized it if you hadn't looked at it before.
Yes, that's it. So if you don't know, it's like, okay, this is just, you pass by places and you miss lots of things unless you are aware of what's there. Or it can be the opposite, that you go to a place and you have an argument, or you have, you miss the plane, or you have some things, and then no, that's okay. It's part of the experience, right? So it's not you don't beat yourself up either, because that's what's there. So that's the awareness that helps you to navigate the challenges, or to connect with the energy that otherwise you would miss.
Yeah, so it's, in a way, if we would summarize it, it's like something that it's not to predict the future or to know exactly what's going to happen, but it's really to support you on this journey that you are on, and to decide, okay, which places can be supportive for certain areas of my life in this time of my life.
Exactly. To make the most of it, if you already decided you're going to be there, how to make the most of it, how to have this experience in the best experience possible, or where to choose places. So it can be, I can choose the place that's more supportive for the goals, or the place is already decided, what's intended for me to experience there, and how can I prepare myself the best to navigate that, or to experience that.
And I'm sure everyone who's listening now is like, oh, I want to dive into this and see what's on my chart, and which places are good for me to travel to, and all of that. I'm also already getting curious again to dive into it. I think it's such a fascinating tool. I feel like we went very deep and we covered a lot of aspects. And of course, as you said, it's so specific for everyone personally, combining the birth chart with the world map and what shows up. So yeah, I would definitely, for anyone who's curious, recommend to have a look if you are perhaps thinking about, okay, where am I going to move to next? Or perhaps you have moved somewhere and you're just curious how this place that you're in is going to support different parts of you. I think this is a very interesting tool to dive into. So if anyone is curious about a reading with you, or just to be in contact, where can they find you?
So my website is travelawakens.com. If they want to download a free PDF where I can help them map out destinations, they can download it in travelawakens.com/destinations. And if they want to book a session with me, travelawakens.com/astro. This would be the websites that they can check.
Perfect. I will also share it in the show notes. So don't worry if you are not writing it down right now. I will just put all the links there so you can easily find it. Yeah, thank you so much, Sonia, for all of this information. Yeah, as we said, I think we covered a lot. It was super interesting to dive deeper into this. And I feel like even though I already knew a little bit about it and have had a reading myself, I feel like I also learned more things today. And it's always good to just sometimes go back to those basics and realize, okay, what can can we use this for, and what is the foundation? And yeah, there's so much to discover in all of this. Thank you for also giving such a clear explanation, because sometimes I feel like with those type of things, it can get very confusing if you dive into it. When I started with astrology as well, sometimes I thought, okay, this is just too much information. Where do I even start? So I feel like you really explained it in a beautiful way that makes it understandable, whether you're just a beginner or you have had some experience with this already. So yeah, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for that.
And that's a good point. And it's also that, I was looking for people that could explain it in a way that's more practical, down to earth, because sometimes we have all these, more like ideas and concepts, but okay, how do you apply that? How do you can use that? So I am this kind of person myself. I believe, that I love to bring this in a way that's easy to understand for people as well, and to use it as a tool that you have, that you can use for your travels or your relocations. So just know it's there, it can help you, and yeah, why don't use it if it's available?
Yeah, exactly. Why not? That's what this podcast is all about. But we started within the beginning as well, going beyond the ordinary. And this is definitely a tool that's maybe not something that is spoken about a lot. But now that you've heard about it, why not make use of it, dive into it, and see how it can uncover new things for you? So thank you so much, Sonia, for this beautiful conversation. And thank you everyone who is listening today. Don't forget to follow and subscribe so that you stay up to date on future episodes. And I will see you in the next one.